All right. We've got a nice little bunch here. So how about everybody, if you can, why don't you turn on your cameras and turn on your microphones, at least just for a minute, just to say hello. I mean, there's some people that I haven't met yet. I don't even know what you look like. I was like looking at like your student IDs on the thing, and yeah. Go ahead, just everybody unmute. Let me know you're there. Hey, look at, oh my gosh, this is so great. Look at all this stuff. Excellent. Okay. Lap, are you there? Micah, Ian, there we go. And William is there. Great. Okay. All right. So in the future, I want you to like look around at everybody. In the future, we're going to kind of team up and do some assignments that are, you know, have a little bit of a back and forth within a group discussion, format. But for now, you know, leave it on if you feel like it. Go ahead and mute your microphone unless you feel like it, and please feel free. I'm going to open up my screen sharing app in just a minute, so you may or may not be able to see the chat screen. That but it'll be there. If somebody asks a question on chat and I don't get to it immediately because I haven't seen it, that's really the only thing. So we'll get to that pretty soon. So what I like to do, it's 8:04. We'll go ahead and start. We got, this is great because I can just kind of take a roll later and I can kind of take a look at everybody because I'm recording this right now. So let me share my screen with you and we'll go to Brightspace and we'll figure some stuff out. So while we're doing that, how about a couple of minutes, a little feedback. I haven't looked at the videos yet, but I got a couple of emails saying everything went fine. I got a couple of others saying not so much. What's the general consensus? Who can I hear from somebody who it worked for? You were able to get an MP4, put it right in there, and no problems. Yeah, Elizabeth, okay, and yep. So, was it? I didn't see. Was it Keegan? Is that what you said? Okay. Well, can I ask you real quick, Keegan? How did you shoot the video? Did you shoot it on your phone or on your desktop?
I just shot it on my phone, and then it came out as a .mov or MOV. Okay. And then I looked it up. There's a bunch of different ways and like weird websites, and it ended up just trying to make me try and like pay to convert it. Right. So I ended up putting it into iMovie and then just exported it out of iMovie as MP4.
Perfect. So if you are a Mac user like me, I can't even turn on a PC. I've just never had one. I mean, I think I had one in the 90s when they weighed like 25 pounds. And if you moved them a little bit, the hard drive would crash. Like it was basically the time I had a PC was when I also was working in Atari. So that was, yeah. So that's a great option. Do we have any PC users that have that solution, like a standard software that's free, such as iMovie for Macs? Any PC users? Any input?
You can record on Zoom as well. It's automatically converted to MP4.
Great. So you got your Zoom account from the school. You can just do your own Zoom thing and just have that one little clip of 2 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever to support there. Okay.
Yeah, because if you hit record on if you record on the bottom, it automatically starts recording it. Once you stop recording and leave the meeting, then it'll automatically convert it to MP4 file.
Great. That's apparently what I'm doing right now, and that should be pretty good.
Yeah. Those online converters is to convert YouTube videos to MP4 files. That's what most people use it for.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So is it a pre-YouTube thing? You do this before you go to YouTube and upload it there?
You can just steal the link right off the YouTube video and it will just convert it straight to an MP4. That's why people watermark their videos, because it's an IP. It's like technically illegal because of IP. But
technically illegal. We're getting into some dicey situations here.
Those websites are so sus.
Yeah.
They want to hide everything behind the wall.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions? Did it not work? Could I hear from anybody that it didn't work for? Or did you have to troubleshoot anything to get it to work? Good stuff. Well, I'll look forward to watching those today and tomorrow. And in the meantime, we have, usually I teach this class like a seminar once a week 3 hours at a stretch. So when I say grammar boot camp, I mean like usually what we do at the beginning of this course is sit down and kind of go through like 3 hours of grammar until everybody hates me. But we're going to actually just do like an hour or so at a time, and I could space out the assignments rather than giving you a giant thing to work on, this homework packet, and then I don't see you for a while. So I'm going to try and really kind of get in the spirit of meeting twice a week, doing a small chunk of what we have to accomplish, and having you submit your work twice weekly, so that it breaks it up a little bit. You can get into a little bit better of a rhythm, and there's probably like less opportunity to really just get behind. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen, and let's do desktop. I'm gonna open up a little something for you. All right, so that is, let's go first to, oh, before I forget, is that Anki? Does anybody use a flashcard system, an online flashcard system like Anki or anything else?
Quizlet.
Quizlet, okay. How do you like Quizlet?
I like it. I think
It's great.
I used to have the upgraded version and then realized it wasn't worth it.
Yeah, there's a lot of paid versions. Yeah, there's a lot of paid stuff that you can't do there. And Quizlet, I think, and Chegg is another one. I think Quizlet and Chegg are probably the same company. They're probably just different branding situations. What I'm doing as an English major, I'm rediscovering flashcards right now, and it's kind of making a big difference. So what I'm using is Anki, and what I'm going to do is put a link to Anki. It's a free open source platform, and it's a little more effective than the other ones that I've found because it has an algorithm that it runs for spaced repetition. And so whether you get something and it's very, very easy, then it'll space it out so you don't see it for a couple of days. But if it's really hard, it'll show it again to you in another minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, so that you can kind of do some spaced repetition, and you only see the cards that you really need to, so they can kind of get in those long-term memory banks. It'll ask you to recall that information. So I'm gonna do, I thought I had a Brightspace open. I guess I don't. I better go to Brightspace and show you. And the other thing I need to do is get my display settings off of old man settings so that we can actually see some content in this screen. Okay, there we go. So for this one, yeah, I a lot of this stuff, I decided to be an early riser today. So I got up and did a few things. So even if you looked at it yesterday, I've changed a few things this morning from our Brightspace. So if we go to our first one, let's just say table of contents. Table of contents is great. You can see all the kind of stuff out there. That's our syllabus. That's our recording right there of our first meeting. So if you happen to miss it, that's how you can take a look at the syllabus and all the important information. Flashcards system, I found this guy that's like a plastic surgery resident or something like that. And he started this little thing called Med School Insiders, and he shows you some tips and tricks. So the learning curve is pretty steep for Anki in the beginning. You have to kind of actually learn how the thing works. And I've been kind of fooling with it for a little while. And I think if you're not using one already that works for you, I would definitely recommend checking this one out and taking a look at, basically maximizing your study time. So especially with things that you've learned a bunch before, like for me, you know, the whole, the verb, is it lay or lie? Which one is it? Right? I never memorized that. And I remember, like, when I was in undergrad, I asked my professor, like, hey, how far do we go with stuff like this? And she goes, I never memorized that either. Whenever I need it, I look it up, is what she said. And she spoke 7 languages. So I speak 1 at best, maybe 1.1 languages. But that's the thing, is a lot of this kind of stuff that, you know, you don't need to memorize. But some stuff would be very, very, very helpful if you just memorized it and it never went away. if you could have something like this to review the things that you thought were important, like, you know, maybe formulas for your fluids class or something along those lines that you know you'll use again, but you're probably going to forget because you won't use them for 6 months. This is the kind of stuff that I think can make that review extremely easy, and then it's part of your long-term memory banks. It's not just gone after the test. So that's groovy. I like that. Let's try this. Let's go back. Strongly recommend checking that out. And that's that. Week 1, where we are right now. So here is just a shortcut link. I just basically put this in here in case somebody didn't have me walk it through them. This explains what Purdue OWL is. I told you about that last week, and there's the link. And of course, it doesn't go back to the correct. There it goes. There is basically just a link that you can use all semester long to get to the general thing. Now, I wanted to show you a little bit about the navigation of this website that we'll be going to. I made a little presentation out of Google Slides that's in here that has links to specific pages. But the way that we do this is this isn't particularly organized as good as it may be able to be. So if you just go to the generic OWL Purdue website, you have to go to general writing, not research and citation, all this other stuff. There's all this stuff, but general writing, and then you can get into mechanics, grammar, punctuation, which is what we're going to typically cover in this class. There'll be maybe a few other ones, but for some reason they have parts of speech of as mechanics and not grammar, things like that. They're kind of a little hard to find. So I'm going to point you to the ones that you really need to, but you can always use this as a reference. When you expand punctuation, grammar, and mechanics out, you're pretty much going to get almost everything that I'm going to cover, and probably some stuff that I'm not going to cover. I'm not going to go over this one because if that's an issue for you, then we can talk about that in our conferences. But the whole class doesn't need to go over that sort of thing. So I don't know how long I'm going to use this eventually, because they keep putting things like little movies and things like up there. They're kind of like YouTubeizing it. But it's still basically a very good resource if you can put up with those two annoying little things. So here we are back in week 1, and it's time to start the big thing, which is down here, we got Grammar Essentials PowerPoint. Go over that as well. Here is your Word document for after today's lecture. Subject-verb agreement is going to have a 1-page little worksheet. Turn it in, and then we can go over that worksheet on Thursday. So everything is pretty much explained there. Are there any questions about that? Here's the lecture format that we're going to go into. Here's the worksheet that you have to download and then re-upload after you've made all the changes in Word. And here is the basically here's the Dropbox. For some reason, Brightspace won't let me upload a document to an assignment. I have to just upload the document and then make an assignment. So that's where your points will be. Is that clear?
Can we see that right now, or are we supposed
to?
Be able to see
we're
going
to go over everything. This is the plan for today. So
okay.
I'll spend the next hour doing all this.
Because where's that under? Because I don't see that.
Say once more.
I don't see the grammar subverb agreement Word document.
So are you on screen sharing? Can you see my screen? Is that working properly? Yeah. So this guy that I'm doing right there, that's a Word document. You can see it right there. Okay. Right. So that's a Word document. So you'll download this. Right. Okay. I'll just do what you're going to do. Then what you're going to do is open that Microsoft Word document, and you're going to be like, okay, I'll choose Annie and her brothers. Is it is or is it are? I gave you some easy ones to start with. Down here they get a little dicey, but that's the sort of thing. So you're going to just basically just delete all the stuff that it isn't, right? Okay. So the first one is a compound subject. So you're going to do that with all of them, and then save that document with a new name, right? Okay. And then you'll turn it in here where the assignment is. Because if you go here, now I'm getting teacher's view right now, but you will have, there's where the add attachments button is. Damn it. I'm so upset. You know what I'm going to do? Just gonna put that right there. I'll do that after. You don't have to watch me do that. It's there. So I just got to remember that this is an open, anyone can view with the link. That's the wrong link. Damn it. All right, I'll redo this. Grammar Essentials. Anyway, you'll get this. So I'm going to talk about a bunch of stuff. I want you to make flashcards for the words that you don't know and that you need to revise, and we'll take it from there. But basically, I want you to learn some vocabulary, and I'll tell you which is more important than the others. But basically, if we start here, I'm going to try and give you enough to go on so that we have the vocabulary in our conferences to talk about the specific issues in each of your papers. So a lot of these categories, it's kind of best to know that they exist, and they exist under a certain umbrella. There it is. They exist under a certain big umbrella of other terms. Like, you know what a pronoun is, right? It's a noun, but it takes the place of a noun. Like, I could just say Scott. Scott says that reading is important. Well, according to Scott, but that sounds kind of funny. So I use the term I, right? Those are all pronouns. Now, there's a lot of different kinds of pronouns. There's interrogative pronouns, there's possessive pronouns, there's other kinds of pronouns, but the umbrella term is, it's just one of those. So when you're looking at a sentence and we're not, and we say we got a problem with your pronouns, it just means that I need you to know that category because we're going to look in that area. So likewise, I think transitive and intransitive is probably the least helpful thing that people spend a lot of time in these classes on. So basically what I want you to know is in these modules. So in order to talk about our sentences, we have to talk about words, and we're going to talk about words in a sentence in two different ways. The sentence is divided up into two parts. As you see, there's a subject. That's the person, place, thing, or idea that's doing the something or being some way in a sentence. Like, for example, when the way that I am being right now is green. So I am green. The subject is I. We have this state of being. So it's not just as obvious as like I jump, he jumped, they jumped. Those are pretty easy. But this essential concept of the state of being is going to become very important later on. The predicate is just the rest of the sentence. It's not the subject. And then we talk about words, individual parts of speech. So that's not subject predicate. That means there are 7 categories essentially that we're going to talk about of what kind of word is this in a sentence. So one easy one that you can memorize right now is the subject of a sentence is always, always, always going to be a noun. The verb is going to be in that other part of the sentence, the predicate. So the verb is not the subject unless you change that verb into a noun. So that's the tricky part. Sometimes these words change their part of the speech depending on how you use them. So it's important to understand the functionality. Yeah, but these are not the same thing. When I say noun, I don't necessarily mean subject. When I say verb, I don't necessarily mean this or that or the other thing. They're just kind of different ways of talking about the sentence. So in this way, when we divide the sentence into 2 main parts, we have 2 words that we're going to use. And in this way, when we're talking about individual words, we have 7 different words that we're going to use. And they are not the same things. Those are just 2 different ways of speaking. So here they are, all of it right there. So hopefully all these links work. I did a little bit of stuff. Let's see if this link works. Yep, there we go. It works. So you can review that right there with that little link, but this is basically what it is in a shortened version. A noun's a person, place, thing, including an idea. A thing is an idea. So when I say justice or true love, that's an idea that you can use as a noun. If you're talking about it in a thing, like I love you, love is a verb, it's an action, right? But if you say love is the most important thing in life, love is, What's the verb? Right, is. Love is now a noun. It's an idea that we're talking about. So we can change from verb to noun depending on how we use it in the sentence. And we know that if it's the subject of the sentence, it has to be a noun. So we've changed that typical verb, which is love or care or any of these other words that can be they can be changed from verbs to nouns, from nouns to verbs, depending on how you use them. Pronoun. Oh man. Pronoun. Good. Let's see here. Maybe I should. Yeah, let's just finish this real fast. So here we are, number 3, verb. And please go ahead there. I'm not, since we're all screen sharing right now, I can't see the chat. Go ahead and just unmute and go ahead and just kind of you can totally interrupt with a question anytime if you need to ask one before we move on. Pronoun takes the place of a noun. Verb, 2 kinds, action and linking. We're going to talk a lot about verbs, and those are the 2 that we're going to get straight today on this page as we look a little bit closer to it. So here's the thing that we're going to talk about with adjectives and adverbs. You may have all heard there before, adjectives modify a noun, adverbs modify anything except a noun. For example, another adverb or a verb or something else that I can't think of right now. But basically, what we can do in this way to most effectively address our sentences is not worry about the difference. I'm not going to ever ask you the difference between an adjective and an adverb. What's important to know is that it's a modifier. So the modifier has to agree. You have to kind of make the sentence work, and that can get a little dicey. We may have to go into the difference a little bit. But I think typically the important thing to know is that groups of words act as modifiers. So you can have just a group of words that is one adjective. It could be just the one word that modifies the noun, like green, or it could be an adverb like quickly. How did she run? She ran quickly. The ly words are your classic adverb, classic examples of the adverb. But what if you said quite quickly? Quite modifies quickly, which is an adverb. So don't worry about parsing it up. Just know that quite quickly is one group of words that modifies how she runs. So we got run as the verb and the stuff that helps us understand with more detail what that verb is or does. And that's all you need to know about them. So in that case, I think that's enough for now on that one. Prepositions will go specifically into detail, but they are orientation words. And if you, let's see, yeah, that's enough for now. We'll go into that. I mean, I have slides on all these later, but we're just going to go into them. So conjunctions, those are sweet. You love them, right? We're going to watch the cartoon in a second. Coordinating conjunctions, and, but, or will get you pretty far. Subordinating conjunctions, different kind of conjunctions entirely. Those are the 2 that I will need you to know. Articles. If you know that the articles are a, and the, it's a soccer field, it's the soccer field, it's an apple. If you know those, then you don't ever need to worry about them again. They simply need to agree. If it's an issue, we'll go specifically in your conferences. And the last one is interjections. This is another one that I want you to be aware that you can forget about. Those are the utterances that express spontaneous feeling. Ouch, wow, psst, hey, those kinds of things. So let's do, any questions so far? Just general categories, are we good? Okay, let's move on. These, you can get a little bit more detail. And this is a fun cartoon right there to watch about interjections, but we don't really need to know about any of these unless they become an issue. So I'm going to move on to something that I think would be a little bit more of value. Got it there? So we have a little bit later, this is your reference for pronouns. We're going to have a worksheet on that later, but for now, all you need to know is that it's these common ones: he, they, we, it, and recognize them. That which we're going to do later, and that is who, whose, whom, those are all pronouns as well, and they can get a little bit dicey, but we don't really need to go into them right now. That's the category. They take the place of another noun, and sometimes they do the possessive thing, like one thing belongs to the other, like it's her book. That's a possessive pronoun because we didn't say Sally, we said her. But her book also implies that there's a belonging. There's a what is it called? There's a possessive aspect to that interaction. Talked about that. I think the only thing that we need to cover here is common nouns and then subjects. So person, Professor Starr, or teacher. Teacher, if you see right here, is a regular old noun. Professor Starr is a proper noun, and proper nouns get what? A capital letter. Place, kitchen, general. Cleveland, specific, proper noun, capital letter. Thing, pencil or Halley's Comet, general noun, proper noun, capitalization. And then this one, like Roman Senate, is a kind of a thing that we talk about, and it's specific, so it gets the Roman Senate existed from this year to that year. That's that sort of thing. Is that clear so far? The subject of a sentence is always a noun, or more than that. It's a group of nouns. So when you take this one over here, you'll notice that Dick and Jane walked by the seashore. Dick and Jane are a compound subject. I am going to demote this down here because I can do a little bit of that. Can you guys still see okay? Please jump in there if it's too way too small. But it should be okay. I'm going to jump around a little bit and make some changes. So the noun seashore right here, definitely a noun, right? But it's not the subject. That's an important distinction. All right. So the subject of a sentence is the person, place, or thing that answers the question who or what verbs the verbed. Another way of saying that is the subject is a noun, is the noun or nouns in a sentence that performs the action of the verb, or it exists in a certain way. So what do Dick and Jane do? They walk. The seashores, yeah, we get that. So here's where it starts to get complicated. Now the seashore exists in a certain way. It exists beautifully, right? So the seashore isn't doing anything in this sentence. The seashore looked beautiful. So looked is essentially transferring this action of the beautiful describes the seashore, and looked is the connector. And we'll come back to this a little bit later, but that's kind of important to fully understand. Don't dismiss the words state of being, exists in a certain way, because those are the ones that we're going to get, that are going to mix things up and kind of get a little dicey. All right, I'm moving pretty fast. So what I'm going to do is stop the screen share for a second, check in with you guys. It's 8:30. Has everyone officially fallen asleep with grammar lecture? It's okay. I've been there. Why don't we take some, let me get to two pieces of feedback. Thank you, Lap. Somebody unmute their microphone and tell me, totally know all this stuff. I know half of this stuff. I used to know this stuff. I forgot it all. Tell me something, but I need to hear from a couple of people, please.
Like a mix of
the stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, what was the first one?
Why we're redoing this stuff? It's been a while.
Been a while. Okay. So it's not wasted time.
Yeah.
It's not wasted time that we're just reviewing this stuff, right?
Hello.
Good. Okay. So, in the conferences, what we're going to do is I'm going to tell you, well, the problem with this sentence is look at your subject. Now look at the verb. See the problem? Okay, let's move on. That's kind of how I want those to go, is I want to teach you to kind of look in certain ways at your own writing for you to be able to kind of put things together. So that's why we're doing the vocabulary the way that we're doing it right now. Is you may have known this stuff and you may have just completely forgotten about it, but it's very difficult to talk about your writing without having the vocabulary of the proper nomenclature. You're just gonna have to memorize some terms. So I think if you can bear with it, it does get a lot more interesting, I promise. But if you can bear with it for a little while, what we're actually doing is kind of laying a foundation for you to make a permanent shift in your writing, to identify problems that continually happen that have been plaguing you for a while and fix them. So it's worth the effort. It's a little memorization, but hey, you guys took chemistry, right? You got to memorize some stuff. All right, let's go back to, unless there are any other questions, we'll go back to the screen share, continue on a little bit. Okay. So let's do this. Let's see, action verbs. We don't have to watch the whole thing here, but you get the point. I grew up watching these on Saturday morning when TV happened at a specific time and not other times. Oh yeah, verbs are what's happening. You can watch that any old time that you want. Those are action verbs right there. Action. Come on now, there we go. So our linking verbs that we were talking about are basically, there's one form that you have to just kind of memorize. The verb to be, or just be, you know, be, is a verb that we basically just got to talk about for a little while. It is the classic example of the linking verb. It's the other category of verbs, and this one example is basically enough to know. You don't have to memorize all of the different ones. You can kind of figure it out if you just know this one. So the root form of this one is to be. That's you know, the base form or the root form. The infinitive, it's what you look up in the dictionary. And the conjugated form, that's the other word that we're going to talk about. Conjugating means changing the verb to suit that particular sentence. It conveys information. It says who's doing it. It says what's happening. It also has to do with time placement and whether an action is complete or still going on or incomplete or was interrupted. All of that information is in the verb when you conjugate the verb. But the general form of the verb is the one that you find in the dictionary. So you won't find jumped, like yesterday I jumped. You won't find jumped in the dictionary. If you look it up, you just got to look up the base form, which is jump. So that's kind of what we're talking about here. Regular verbs do this, like for example, let's say you're learning the language, you don't know what this means. The dog drooled on the Thanksgiving turkey. Take the ed ending off and look up the base form. That's the base form. And if you put the to, as in the general form, that's called the infinitive. And that's really all you need to know about that. Let's see, what else did I have down there? Yeah, you add your base forms, you add your stuff, good. Ed and ing are your common endings for verbs. So you'll just recognize them that way. So this is all the information that is conveyed when you change that verb, you conjugate that verb into a specific meaning. If it's regular, you just add ed. Today I jump rope every day. Yesterday I jumped rope. You just add the ed to get past tense, right? So jumping is a very, very common, nice, well-behaved regular verb. You can add an s. I jump, he jumps, or I am jumping. You see the ing there. So those are easy. But irregular verbs like be just look different. They just look differently. So so this let's take this example of to be. It changes completely with all these different ones. So whether it's I, he, she, we, or it, they, it's going to look different. It's is, am, are, was, were, being, and been. All forms of being and been, like has been, have been, all of those ones. That's all the same verb. It doesn't look anything like the verb to be, but that's what it is. So what I'm going to say right now, it's a lot easier to get you riled up when you're in class, in person, but I want you to actually repeat this, even though it sounds kind of dumb. Is, am, are, was, were, being, been. Please repeat. Is, am, are, was, were, being, been. Now you. Say it out loud. You don't even have to turn your microphone on. Just say it. Is, am, are, was, were, being, been. Is, am, are, was, were, being, been. Say it 5 times really fast. I'll give you a minute. You say it with me. Is, am, are, was, were, being, been. 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 You want to know this is so cold that this is like a major identifier for a lot of the things that we're going to talk about in your writing. Is, am, are, was, were, being, been. Okay, good. So we'll have another, here's a list if you're having, let me just show you real fast. Here's a list of the other irregular verbs that are common in English. So that's our first one, our most popular one. But become, became, and the past participle, I have become a superhero. That's not an ED ending. The past participle is usually the ED ending. So break, broke, broken. Instead, it's not breaks, I braked the lamp yesterday. That's not how it goes. It's irregular. So things start looking differently. Now, obviously, these look pretty good, right? Oh, I like this one. Cut. Today I cut my I cut with a pair of scissors. Yesterday I cut. I have cut with scissors before, just not recently. All the same, right? That's how it's irregular. It's not I have cutted before, but not recently. So a lot of them look similar. They're just a little different. Feel, felt, and felt, that sort of thing. There's no ED here. If this was a regular verb, here it is. Jump, jumped. Past participle, also jumped. Yesterday I jumped. I have jumped before. Same. So these would, if this were a list of the regular verbs, it would be so silly to even make a list because it would just be the regular base form here. And here's an ED and here's an ED. And if you want, you could add an ING, that'll work too. I have been jumping for a long time. And that's why I'm tired. Okay, back to linking verbs. The function of this linking verb is to connect a state of being to the subject. So the subject is going to exist, as in like, I am cold. So if you say am, is being cold an action? You can't quite describe it as an action the same way that you can like shop, jump, swim, study, sleep. Sleep, yes, is an action. But you can be tired. So if you have one of those words like, I get cold in the fall, or I get cold early in the mornings, that means kind of like I am cold, right? If you can substitute that version of to be, am, in this case, for that other word, then that verb is acting like a linking verb, which means it is a linking verb because this is a usage thing. So it's not just that there's only one example of the linking verb. It's just that get, like I get cold. If you change that around, sometimes it's going to be an action verb to get a present. Now, a present does not a state of being that's connected with the subject, right? It's a thing that receives you receive the action of getting the present. So in that case, get is an action verb. But if you get cold, cold is not a thing that you can receive like a present. It's a state of being. So there it's a linking verb. So those are the kind of things that get a little bit tricky, but it's still a linking verb. Remember it that way. So you have to look at how it's used. The thing is, to be doesn't have an action verb form. it's always a linking verb. So if you can substitute to be in that sentence, then you know you've got a linking verb if it still makes sense. Another one is look, for example. So I looked at the sea. Is that an action or is that a state of being that look is communicating? That's an action. You look with your eyes, it's an action. I grabbed the stuff, I looked at the sea. So you look tired. That's a sentence where tired is a state of being that describes the subject, you. So now that same word, look, is being used in two different ways. If you look tired, that's a linking verb. If you looked at the painting, that's an action verb. All right, now this one we're gonna actually watch. Part of speech is conjunction.
We can't hear that.
You can't hear the audio?
No.
Let's see here. I'll tell you what. How about a little bit of that? I know. How about there? Anything coming out?
No.
Nope. Okay. Don't know how to do that then. I'll have to troubleshoot that later. But you may get the point. Did anybody hear it? Was it coming through for anybody?
No.
Okay. So,
I mean,
not a big deal. What we can do is, let's see, there it is. Okay. So the boxcars in this one are just words and phrases and groups of words, clauses. And the ones that they use here to demonstrate them are the coordinating conjunctions. That's the kind they're talking about. You can just, you know, the links are all here. You have access to this Google Slides presentation. So all these links should work for you. It's up there in Brightspace. And I think I have to fix the link, but I'll fix it after class. But this one, and, but, and, or. Can you see my, actually, there was something I was relying on. Can you see my cursor as I make circles?
Yes.
Good. So that's why doesn't a screen share work, man? That's lame. So I can point to stuff at least. So we have and, but, or, yet, so, and for. The acronym YAFNOBs, easy to remember, right? Fanyabos, may have heard this. There's the fanboys. I don't know. But these are the different ways of remembering these ones. So for is kind of weird. It's that archaic version of it that you hear in like a Sherlock Holmes book or something like that. I was late for there was much traffic. It's the because meaning of for, not I have a present for you. Those are different. So it's only in that sense of because, causality, where this is a coordinating conjunction. The other times, for actually is a different part of speech entirely. So this is kind of easy, right? It's either or, they go together, either this or that, and then it's neither this nor that. So they're either both positive or they're both negative, but you don't say it's neither this or that. That's the only way that you can get these wrong, is to mix those two up. So that's what those are. So these coordinating conjunctions put things together. And you can see there, that's at the end, that's the cartoon. When you watch it, it'll come up with phrases and clauses. And phrases and clauses, all you need to remember is that they are groups of words. They act as one unit. So it can either include a noun and a verb, in which case it's a clause, or they don't have to, in which case it's a phrase. It could be a group of words like on the mountain. That doesn't have a subject and a verb, so that's just a phrase. But this last part is kind of important because now we're getting into where the terms kind of come together. If you have a clause that can stand on its own as has a noun and has a verb and meets all these other requirements, it actually completes a real thought. Then you have what's called an independent clause. It doesn't need anything else to stand on its own, and that means it's a sentence. Independent clause and sentence are the same thing. Independent clause and sentence are the same exact thing. So where you get into a mistake, like you have something standing there, but it's actually a sentence fragment, that's because you have a dependent clause. Dependent still depends on something else. It depends on another part of the sentence. I meant on something bigger, some other meaning that's not in there, and it can't stand on its own. So here's an example. Maybe I don't have an example. Well, okay, I'll just give you you'll get all this because this is all in the worksheets. This is just the overview right now. But for example, if you say, I went to the store to buy candy, that's a sentence, it's a phrase. You completed a thought, you got a subject, you got a verb, you got the whole thing. But if you say, although, at the beginning of that one, although I went to the store and bought candy, we're still waiting, right? Although I did this, well, what? Are you out again? Do you need more? Did you not get enough for the whole group? What? It's, it doesn't matter how many words are in the sentence, is, you know, more than two anyway. It has to have, the sentence, the independent clause has to have a subject and a verb, and it has to complete a thought. So in our example, although I went to the store, we have a subject and a verb, or something that could be one really. We don't really have one. We have a noun and a verb, but because of that although there, it doesn't complete a thought. So that's where we need the coordinating conjunctions and the commas and the whole thing. And we gotta basically put phrases together with coordinating conjunctions. Don't worry about because just yet. There's some special rules. We'll come back to that a little bit later. So that's the independent clause. This is all just stuff that you can read through, which is a review of what I just told you. Good. Independent clause, dependent clause. It's missing a requirement. And what are the three requirements for a clause to become independent, for it to be an own sentence? It has to have one, a subject, two, a verb, and three, it has to complete a thought. So I ran. Anybody know that song? It's a great song. It's a perfectly good sentence. It completes the thought. It has a subject and it has a verb. So it's frustrating when you write really long sentences and then they turn out to be fragments because it doesn't complete a thought. But that can happen, and it's something that you need to be aware of. As long as you have two words, that you might have a perfectly good independent clause, but it still might be a dependent clause that needs some other thing. You just got to check. And you need those three things: a subject, a verb, and a complete thought. We are getting to the end. This is the last lame thing I'm going to hit you with today. So we're all there, okay? The other kind of conjunction is called a subordinating conjunction. The subordinating conjunction is exactly what it sounds like. Sub means under. Where does a submarine go? Under the water. Where subterranean animals live, they live under the ground. So if you take orders from a superior, you are a subordinate. So this subordinating conjunction takes something that was altogether a complete sentence and it gives it a demotion. It makes it under, it makes it less important. So it used to be an independent clause, this whole sentence. And once you add one of these other conjunctions, these subordinated conjunctions, it takes that away. So although was the example that I used, the word although just a minute ago, that's a subordinated conjunction. Although I went to the store demotes the sentence, I went to the store. used to be a complete sentence. Now, although I went to the store is no longer a complete sentence because I added a subordinating conjunction. You can't add and. That's a coordinating conjunction. That's a different, that's the one that's in the cartoon. It's a little bit different. So these subordinated conjunctions, you know what? Let me just make a note right now. I'm gonna write down my notes for revision on these. I'm gonna put a list of subordinated conjunctions right here. Okay, so I'll do that right after class. That'll be updated by the time you ever go back there. I think that's good. These links work, by the way. You can check out the adverbs and these guys. And here is the more detailed explanation. But I am going to stop there today because that's a ton of stuff. And what I really want you to do is take a look at subject-verb agreement. So first and foremost, leave some space here. Any questions about anything or the level of detail, whatever. Just you can ask me anything right now.
Is there any open spots in this classroom?
We'll talk afterwards. Who needs a spot?
I do.
You gotta keep talking. Daniel.
Daniel Isaacson, yeah.
Daniel, thank you, Daniel. Okay, perfect. Daniel, I'll tell you what, I got to look at my list because I don't have that information in front of me. There are people waiting to get in here, but I have, you know how it goes. You give people ask for it and then they don't use it. The short answer is probably, but I can't guarantee it until I email you later. So I'll email you later today, okay?
Perfect,
Good.
thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions? Anybody else need to add?
Do we have any homework assignments today?
Yeah. We'll get to that in 2 seconds. Yep. Anything, I mean about like the content of anything before that was just kind of like, that wasn't gonna work. That was totally discombobulated and confusing. Okay, let's move on to this guy. Let's move on to there it is. And all right, we're back on screen save and there it is. Okay, so now I'm back on the, that's the wrong one, wrong section. Let's go back to week 1, our table of contents. So this is not going to take you long, but I want you to do something and get in the habit, just like this other one right here, of doing something and turning it in, and there are points attached to it. But this is the link to the PowerPoint that doesn't work right now, and I'll fix it as soon as class is done. So the thing that I was just going over, that's right there under week 1. Here we are at week 1. And this is the Word document that you can download for your homework. And then you'll just turn it in here. And I'll clean this up so it'll actually just be under the assignment. But every time I do something here, Brightspace doesn't like to agree with me. And sometimes it takes a little while to kind of get it to look to get it to look right. So here is, let's see, where's my downloads? Let's just do this. Come on. There you go. Boom. See if it works. There we go. So here's your homework due on Thursday. So let's take a look at like maybe number 2. Either my mother or my father. Let's take, what's the subject? Is it both mother and father, or is it just one?
Isn't it both?
Here's your key.
It's just one.
If it was and, then it'd be both, but it's not and, it's or. So that means the end result of this is that mom is coming or dad is coming. So you're going to use is. So it's a little bit of a tricky one right there. So with the or, either myself, did I do that right? Let's see here. Yep. Or singular and plural.
Then what would you do in the case of like 3? Which one takes priority?
Say again?
Which one takes priority in number 3? Because you have dog or cats.
Oh, so then you'll refer back to, so like this is perfect because we can go over all the essential rules, which would take forever, or I can just show you. If you have to choose, go with the one that's closest to the verb.
Okay, yeah.
And that will be your guideline for the more complicated ones down at the bottom. But good, we can get that right. If you have to choose, like these disagree with each other, which one's closer? That's the way to go. So that's that one. Like, so here we're going to get into something called a non-essential clause. Basically, this number 10, let's take a look at this number 10 here for a second, right? I don't expect you to get all these right. You're not going to be graded for getting them wrong, but you will be graded for making an effort. And we'll talk about each one of these, but just want to get you started. So don't worry about like, oh, I'm only going to get 25 out of 40 or 35, right? No, that's not how I'm going to grade it. If I can tell that you're making an effort, you'll get full credit for this homework assignment. What I want you to do is think about the problems the way that we just asked there. Well, how does that work if I have to choose? Good. That's the way that I want you to think about this homework assignment. Make a decision and ask a question. So how about this one, number 10? This is what's called, if it's enclosed in these little commas, it's non-essential information, which means we could just say, hypothetically, we just take that out for a second and the sentence would still work. So when you take out the non-essential information, it's obvious, right?
If you took the other half out instead,
Exactly.
it would sound kind of whack.
It would just sound like the players want to win. Now, how about this? Is the captain now included in this group? Are the players and the captain one group? So basically you could argue with it, right? I think that the captain is non-essential information because the sentence is really about the players. Or you could say, I think the captain is essential and they want to win.
Yeah, but either way, it's not wants.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, however, they're throwing this in one because remember what we just talked about? If there's a disagreement, you go with which one is closer.
Yeah.
Which one's closer? So that's how I don't want you to get confused. It's not, those are two separate rules. So that was the one that's closer to the verb gets the agreement is the tiebreaker. So don't make the mistake of, since that one was closest, I want to do that one. So that's kind of why I wanted to kind of run into the weeds here a little bit and have like, you basically just have to kind of use your best judgment. And if you're a native speaker, and even if you've been speaking English for quite a long time, a couple of years at least, you may be able to just sound it out. But there are some that are going to sound strange, even though they're correct down at the bottom. So that's kind of where we need to know, like, you don't want to just sound it out. That's a tiebreaker move. This one, going with the one, whichever noun is closest to the verb, is a tiebreaker move. It's not your first go-to. Your first go-to is, what's the subject? Is the subject all of this stuff or just part of this stuff? That's your go-to, okay? So these ones, it's kind of strange that, we can talk about all sorts of complicated grammatical structures and parts of speech and deciding whether an adverb is an adverb or whether it's an adjective or whether it's a predicate adjective. And all these, they don't matter because this is the kind of things these are the kinds of things, say just did it, that I see in writing all the time. I just haven't thought through my sentence as to what it means and how to express it clearly. So is nobody singular or plural? Is it nobody? Is it they know or he knows? It's singular. Nobody knows, right? So I think that's probably good for today. Why don't you just give it your best crack? turn it in before class, and then I want you to come, every single person come with at least one specific question on number, not just the question is number 22. Tell me, okay, I think this is what's going on. Like, ask me an actual question. Is this singular? Is that plural? Does it go this way? What's the tiebreaker? Ask me something a little more specific than just the number of the thing. And are there any questions right now? That is plenty for today. Thank you so much for your patience. This is the hard part. Afterwards, yeah, I don't know, man. Sometimes you just got to start with grammar boot camp. But usually when I have you in a room, it feels a little bit more like a prison sentence. And so it's easier to just kind of cram this down your throat real fast, and then we'll move on. But I promise it won't always be like this. Thank you so much for your diligence. I'll fix a couple of those links. Please check out Anki. Please download your homework assignment and then re-upload it, before Thursday. And please also, as soon as I fix the link, take a look at the Google slide grammar presentation that I was just kind of spending most of the class on. Just kind of look over it again, at least the part that we just went over. And if you do those 3 things by Thursday, we'll be in good shape. Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.